Welcome back to another Fantasy EFL video in a series where I go through everything you need to know to help you pick your teams for each game week. Let me know how you got on in Game Week 3 in the comments, and if you're interested to see my final Game Week 4 team selection, then make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it later this week. I feel like the structure of last week's preview video worked well, and you guys seem to enjoy it, so I'll try and keep it very similar this week. I'll start off with taking a look back at some of Game Week 3's highlights, what I liked, what I didn't like, and then some of the players that I actually predicted to do well in last week's video. In League 2, Notts County were very impressive on Thursday night with a 4-1 win over Grimsby. And I'll definitely talk a bit more about this game later on when we go through some players. But Dan Crowley especially was seriously good. Barrow shocked Port Vale with a 4-0 battering, and Port Vale only accumulated 0.26 XG in that whole game. Bradford beat a 10-man Bromley 3-1 at home to take them to second in the table, only on goal difference. And Chesterfield conceded very late on to 10-man Salford to only come away with a point, so a disappointing result at home for them after their 5-0 win against Crewe in Game Week 2. MK Dons finally got 3 points on the board with a 3-0 win over Carlisle. Not the start to the season Carlisle were looking for either. And finally for League 2, Newport, Doncaster and Wimbledon all won to continue their good starts to the season with 2 wins from 3 for each of them. In League 1, Stockport continued their incredible start to the season after being newly promoted, getting their 3rd win from 3 and have a goal difference of +7 already, as they haven't conceded a goal yet. And they beat Bristol Rovers 2-0 in the early kick-off on Saturday. Huddersfield and Charlton also both continued their perfect start to the season, matching Stockport on 9 points. And they're basically the early pace setters for the season now. Huddersfield with just the 1-0 win over Shrewsbury this week, and Charlton with an impressive 2-0 win over Bolton. Game of the weekend this week went to Cambridge versus Blackpool, and after sacking their manager midweek, Blackpool seemed to be cruising and were 4-1 up after 53 minutes. Well, by the 75th minute it was 4-4, so an incredible comeback by Cambridge, leaving Blackpool continuing to struggle with the start to the new campaign. Birmingham and Wrexham both won, with Birmingham beating Leyton Orient 2-1 away from home, with Alfie May being a standout again. And Wrexham beat Reading 3-0, showing again that they'll be putting up a fight for the top again this year. Lincoln also put in a very nice performance, smashing Mansfield 4-1 at home. Shrewsbury and Leyton Orient are now the only teams not to have a point, but Rotherham are really struggling, and are actually down in the relegation zone as it stands, with just 1 point on the board after 3 games. They're actually the only team in the league not to have scored a goal yet this season. The Championship was actually fairly low scoring this week as far as the Championship goes. And a fair few draws in there as well, so I'll try and dive a bit deeper into the Championship later in the video, but I'll still go through some of the thoughts and highlights now. So Leeds put up a very strong performance to get their first win of the season at Sheffield Wednesday on Friday night, with a 2-0 away win. Plymouth went down to 9 men away at QPR, but still managed to hang on for a 1-1 draw after Morgan Whittaker's stunning strike. Blackburn beat Oxford 2-1 even after Harris's wonder goal, and if you haven't seen it, go and watch the highlights, it's definitely worth a watch. Watford also won 2-1 against Derby, and although both played against newly promoted teams, both Watford and Blackburn are proving a lot of the doubters wrong, who tipped them for relegation, me included. Portsmouth got another draw and a 2-2 draw away at Middlesbrough. That's 3 draws out of 3, all against teams tipped for the playoffs at least, with Leeds, Luton and now Middlesbrough. And even then it took a 90th minute penalty from Tommy Conway to snatch a point for Borough. Like I mentioned last week, and unsurprisingly, Preston were a lot better defensively under Heckingbottom, and managed a 1-0 win at home to Luton, although Luton still massively outperformed Preston in terms of XG. Luton had an expected goals of 1.64, and Preston only managed 0.26. However, obviously they came away with a 1-0 win, so maybe a little bit lucky, and so Preston are a team not to put our faith in yet. And then the final game to mention is Sunderland continued their perfect start to the season against Burnley with a 1-0 win, even with Burnley's fantastic start to the season scoring 9 goals in the first 2 games. Sunderland even went down to 10 men and still managed to hold on for the win. I don't think this result means that we should forget about Burnley and how good they're going to be this season, but maybe think even more about Sunderland and potentially a team to target more now. So that's the fixtures from Game Week 3, so I'll quickly just go through some of the players I spoke about in last week's video. Louie Barry got 8 points this week after scoring in another win for Stockport, 2 appearance points, 5 for the goal and an extra 1 for 2 shots on target. Eilezer Magenta got a goal and an assist for Notts County on the Thursday night game. He finished on 10 points, even after picking up a yellow card, so he was definitely a good choice for Game Week 3. I obviously mentioned Alfie May too, as he was in my team, but he finished on 11 points with also getting a goal and an assist. And then finally I also mentioned Sam Cosgrove, who did only finish on 5 points, but he did get an assist in the game. But he also had an XG of 0.43 and had 2 big chances, so it could have definitely been more. Anyway, that's just a few of the players I spoke about last week that ended up doing really well in Game Week 3. So hopefully stuff like that makes you feel like it's worth watching these kind of videos and the effort that I put into them. Now we'll have a quick look at transfer and injury news and suspensions. Derby have just signed Tawanda Kirewa on loan from Wolves, who plays in an attacking midfielder, but can also play on the wing. But either way, he should help Derby in attacking areas. Ipswich have taken Darragh O'Shea from Burnley for 15 million, and they've also signed Jack Clark from Sunderland for 15 million too. So some big names being taken away from the Championship, potentially making those teams weaker. So we'll have to take a deeper, in-depth look at those teams to see how those changes are going to impact them. All the other main transfers happened before the weekend, but Birmingham have signed Taylor Gardner-Hickman on loan from Bristol City, and Stockport have signed Oliver Norwood on a free from Sheffield United. So I'm going to speak about him in a section later on in the video, as I think he could be an absolute gem this season. Adam Forshaw and Freddie Azaka were both sent off for Plymouth away against QPR, and Daniel Neal was sent off for Sunderland against Burnley. I'm actually unaware of any injury news in the Championship, so I apologise if I've got that wrong, and please let me know if you are aware of any. But I've gone through each team and I can't see anything, so I've personally not seen anything that would impact our team choices for Game Week 4. In League 1 there was actually no red cards this game week, so there's no suspensions, but Northampton's Jordan Willis was replaced in just the 33rd minute of their game against Barnsley due to injury. I'm not sure how long he's out for, but if you're thinking about the Northampton defence for their home game against Burton, then just be aware that he might not be starting. Herbie Kane missed out on Huddersfield's game against Shrewsbury due to a groin injury, and might be out for 3 to 4 weeks, so he's not in too many people's teams at the minute, as he hadn't managed to make his way into the starting 11 due to fitness not being quite at the right level, but he's now definitely in a void just for a few weeks at least. I don't think there's any other injury news that will impact our teams too much, but again, let me know in the comments if you do know of any others, and I'll make sure to include them in my Game Week 4 team selection video. From League 2, Bromley's Ashley Charles was sent off in the 8th minute against Bradford, and Salford's Curtis Tilt was sent off for a double yellow in the space of a minute. Injury-wise, Walsall's Priestley Farquharson went off injured against Tranmere, and Salford's Osama Ashley went off in the 21st minute of the game due to injury against Chesterfield. Fleetwood's Zach Melody was replaced in the 16th minute as well, and he could be out for a long time. I think that's all of them, but again, let me know if I'm wrong, and just be aware that all of these players might not be available for Game Week 4, and just be aware if you're looking at those teams. Okay, so now let's have a look at some of the teams I think we should be targeting this week, and I'll rank them in order of personal preference, but you can also see which one the stats and data think are the best option too. I won't go through every single one in depth, so we're not here all day, but the others are still on there. So Leeds United, with 7 wins in their last 17 meetings with Hull City, are heavy favourites with odds of 1.38. Hull are up at 8.00 odds, so they face an uphill battle to secure any points at Ellen Road. Leeds didn't get the start to the season they were looking for, but they looked very strong on Friday night against Sheffield Wednesday and completely outclassed them. That could be the start of some good form, especially with them returning to their home ground to play Hull, who haven't been fantastic yet with 3 draws from the first 3 games. A clean sheet percentage of 48.6, with a win percentage of 71.4 and a projected goals of 1.88 for Leeds, makes them a team I'm definitely looking at maybe including for Game Week 4. Burnley take on Blackburn Rovers in a highly anticipated match. Burnley have dominated this fixture historically, with 6 wins out of 9. The odds favour Burnley at 1.8, and they are expected to secure a home victory against a Blackburn side still seeking their first win in this head-to-head. Even with their most recent 1-0 loss to Sunderland, I expect Burnley to be back to their best at home. It's just whether you want to use one of the 5 times you can choose Burnley this season already. There's still a long way to go, but with a clean sheet percentage of 36.4 and a win percentage of 55.6 and a projected goals of 1.5, they are surely a good choice this week. Bolton are playing at home to Exeter, and Bolton are very good at home. They've not quite performed at the level we expect so far this season, but This could be the game to really get them going. They've got a clean sheet percentage of 46.5 and a win percentage of 65.2 with projected goals of 1.62, so actually one of the strongest on this list. Exeter started off the season well with a 1-0 win over Rotherham, but Rotherham have been awful so far, and Exeter have gone on to then lose to Northampton and Peterborough. Exeter do seem to be another one of those teams that are much better at home, and so going away to Bolton is going to be a tough test for them. I would expect maybe a 2-0 win for Bolton in this game. Birmingham play against Wigan in Game Week 4, who have only scored 1 goal so far this season. Well, they haven't even scored that because it was an own goal, but Birmingham should be getting even stronger as we get further into the season, and they're back at home too. They have a clean sheet percentage of 44.4 and a win percentage of 66.7, and are projected to score 1.82 goals, so they are definitely a team to target for this week, and with Alfie May up front, I fear for that Wigan defence. Portsmouth and Sunderland have an evenly matched head-to-head record, with 4 wins each. Sunderland, however, are favoured in this match and are expected to come out on top in this encounter. With it being an away fixture for Sunderland, I think the potential for clean sheet is certainly lower than if it were a home game, but Sunderland have maximum 9 points so far from the 3 games they've played, so it's no surprise that they're favourites for the game. This is a team that you could maybe take advantage of those extra 2 points for it being an away fixture, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Portsmouth score in that game. Sunderland have a clean sheet percentage of 37 and a win percentage of 48.8 with 1.34 projected goals, so definitely something to think about. And then Cardiff face Middlesbrough in what could be a tightly contested match. Middlesbrough, with 12 wins from the last 22 meetings, they are the bookies' favourites, and Cardiff will need to outperform expectations to secure a win. Cardiff have only scored 1 goal in the league this season, and it was in their derby game against Swansea last weekend. They are back at home here against Middlesbrough, but it's a very quick turnaround from their cup game on Wednesday to play in an early kick-off on Saturday, and I feel Middlesbrough will just be much the better side here. With them being the highest rated team in the league in terms of expected goals, they have an XG of 7.3 so far this season, and the next highest is Sheffield Wednesday on 5.5, so they are quite far ahead. Again, maybe they don't have as much higher clean sheet potential as some of the other teams, but they're still a good shout. They've got a clean sheet percentage for the game of 36.4 and a win percentage of 52.4 with projected goals of 1.39. So another good chance at an away win there. That's all of the ones that I'm going to go in depth on, so feel free to pause the video and have a look at any of the other stats on screen. But I'm going to move straight on and start having a look at some of the players to target for Game Week 4 now. And I'm going to make a rule for myself that all the players I need to mention are below 5% ownership, as I feel it's very easy to just say all the main players and a lot that people have already got in their teams, so that doesn't help you with picking players for your team. And I do think having a few differentials can definitely be good, so unless there's a massive reason why I think you should include someone, then all the people in this section are going to be under 5% owned. I hope that makes sense. First off, I'll talk about Tom McGill, who is a goalkeeper selected by just 0.1% of players. He got 9 points in Game Week 3 with a clean sheet and 3 saves in MK Dons' first win of the season as they won 3-0 at home to Carlisle. MK Dons should be one of the strongest teams throughout the whole season, but they didn't get off to the start they wanted. But this could be the start of some good form and a good run for them. They play against Salford, who have only scored 1 goal this season, which was a late equaliser against Chesterfield last weekend, but I definitely think MK Dons are the stronger side. The only worry I have is that it's an away fixture for MK Dons. McGill has a save percentage of 75% and is making an average of 4 saves per 90, so if they were to keep a clean sheet, he also has potential for extra bonus points too. Corey Addair is the other goalkeeper I like at just 3.5% selected. He scored a total of 23 points so far in the season, with 9 in Game Week 3, in a 2-0 home win against Bristol Rovers with 3 saves. Stockport haven't actually conceded a goal this season, so it's easy for me to put this goalkeeper forward as a player to target. The question to ask is, have we left it too late to bring him in and missed out on his points? As in Game Week 4 he plays away at Mansfield. And not only do Mansfield score a lot of goals, they are also better at home. They did get battered 4-1 by Lincoln in Game Week 3, but that was an away fixture, so they could now be better at home, and there's definitely a risk going for Addair, but with how good Stockport have been for the season so far, he's worth thinking about at least. He's made 5 saves so far this season, with obviously a save percentage of 100%. Moving on to defenders, I really like Pascal Struik at just 2.4% selected. He got 11 points in Game Week 3 for Leeds in a 2-0 victory away at Sheffield Wednesday, with a clean sheet, 11 clearances and 2 tackles. They play at home against Hull in Game Week 4, who have drawn their first 3 games of the season, with their most recent one being a 0-0 draw with Millwall, so not necessarily scoring a lot of goals so far this season. Leeds started off the season in a similar way to MK Dons, just not how they wanted, with a draw against Portsmouth and West Brom, so their win against Sheffield Wednesday could be the start of some good form. The other thing that's appealing about Struik is that he actually took the only penalty Leeds have won so far this season. So if he continues to be on penalties, that's another route to points. He's also very dominant in the air from set pieces, so he's a player I'm very interested in for this week. I also like Paudie O'Connor at just 1.6% owned. He scored a big 28 points so far this season and is playing in a Lincoln side that are looking good again, and they'll be hoping for playoffs this season. In Game Week 3 he got an assist, he made 6 clearances, but unfortunately missed out on the clean sheet, so ended on just 6 points. But with 2 goals and 2 assists already this season, he's clearly showing his attacking threat, with 0.21 xG per 90, which is high for a centre-back, and he's averaging 1 shot on target per 92. Lincoln are scoring a lot of goals so far this season, but the only thing is that they haven't actually kept a clean sheet yet. Now, will this be the game? I don't know, but they play Stevenage away. Now, Stevenage have only beaten Shrewsbury so far, and in Game Week 3 they got a 0-0 draw with Burton. But again, they're definitely better at home as well. There seems to be a recurring theme throughout this section that a lot of the players I like the look of this week specifically are playing away from home, so it's definitely harder this week to decide on a team than previous weeks. Lincoln certainly have the potential to go and get a clean sheet away at Stevenage, but you can just never be fully confident when it's an away fixture. Either way, he's a player I'm looking at for Game Week 4. Okay, and my final other differential defender this week is Bryant Bilongo at just 1.4% ownership. He's also scored 28 points so far this season and plays for a Bristol Rovers side whose defence is looking pretty solid this season. Yes, they did just lose 2-0 away to Stockport, but they're looking like one, if not the best team in the league so far, so I don't think we should read too much into that. They're back at home against Cambridge this week, and I know you're probably thinking, hang on, Cambridge just scored 4 goals against Blackpool, why would we go against them? But Blackpool themselves have looked very weak in every game so far this season, and Cambridge scored 4 goals from just 1.9 xG, so now going away from home against a better defence in Bristol Rovers, I think they'll struggle to score a lot more. I also think just in general Bristol Rovers are a much better side. The other good thing about Bilongo is that he plays as a left wing back, or sometimes even just as a left mid, but basically he's playing in a defence that's pretty strong, but he also has opportunities all game to go forward on the left flank, like he showed in that Game Week 1 where he scored the only goal of the game. He also makes plenty of clearances in the games, with 10 so far this season, really showing his versatility. This is a player I'm seriously looking at for my team this week. Moving on to midfielders, I'm going to start off with Oliver Norwood, who is currently 0.0% owned at the time of recording. This guy, in my opinion, is far too good for League One. He was playing for Huddersfield the year after we got promoted from League One, so we were in the Championship in 2013, and he's got some serious talent. He's good on set pieces too. Like, if you were to look at his career, he's never really been massively in the goals and assists throughout. But you've got to remember, the majority of the teams he was playing for were like a struggling side. Apart from the few seasons that Sheffield United had a team far too good for the Championship, but not good enough for the Prem. Anyway, we've not seen him in League One since he played for Scunthorpe in 2011-12, so he's now obviously left Sheffield United on a free and come to Stockport, and I think he could be dangerously good in this league. The question to be asked is whether it's a bit early to have him in our teams. Like, does he need a bit of time to settle? I'm not sure though, he already managed 6 points in Game Week 3, having played 90 minutes and made 2 interceptions. Again, like I said with Corey Addair, Stockport look like a seriously good team, but they are away at Mansfield. What we've already said about Mansfield is that they score a lot of goals, but they also concede a lot of goals, so this could be a good game for Norwood to be involved in. The only thing is that it's an away fixture, but it could be worth the risk. Next up is Jack Payne of Colchester at 1.5% owned. He scored 28 points in Fantasy EFL so far this season, and looks so creative in the role he's playing. Even in a 1-0 home loss against Harrogate, he made 6 key passes. 6 in one game, so clearly that was just his teammates not finishing his chances. They created 1.95 XG and didn't score a goal, with Jack Payne getting 0.57 expected assists. They do play away at Accrington this week, but Accrington haven't won a game yet this season. The only point they have was a 3-3 draw with Harrogate, and they're conceding a lot, and I mean a lot of goals. They've conceded 10 goals in the league so far in 3 games, and another 3 in the Cup, so 13 goals conceded in 4 games. So really that's making me think that it doesn't matter that Colchester are playing away from home, they're definitely still going to create chances, and Jack Payne is a player I think I really want this week. With his XG per 90 at 0.26, combined with an XA per 90 of 0.29, and creating at least 3 chances per 90, with a pass accuracy of 84%, his stats look seriously good. Finally for midfield, I've chosen Alex Gilbey at 0.9% selected. With 2 goals so far this season, he scored 23 total points. I've already spoken about MK Dons with their keeper Tom McGill, and the same applies here. They didn't get off to the start they wanted in the season, and I think this most recent 3-0 win over Carlisle could be the start of some good form for them. Gilbey scored 9 points in Game Week 3 with a goal and 2 key passes. Now going away to Salford, who haven't won yet this season, and have only scored 1 goal, Salford aren't a side that have shown they're necessarily better at home than they are away, to be fair. So in terms of attacking potential for MK Dons, the away fixture doesn't really bother me. He has an XG of 0.42 per 90, with 1 shot on target per 90, and a pass accuracy of 81.1%. So he is good for those key pass points in Fantasy EFL too. On to attackers I like for Game Week 4 now, and I've got to mention Louie Barry again. And he's now up at 3.7% ownership. He scored 23 points so far, with 8 in Game Week 3 from his goal and 2 shots on target. Similar to Norwood here in the fact he's probably too good for this league really. So always going to be a good choice this season depending on fixture. Like we've already spoken about with Stockport anyway, they do play away at Mansfield, who concede a fair few goals. And with how Stockport are playing, I expect that to continue. So the attacking potential for Barry in this game is high, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the score sheet once again. It's a shame we can't have them all really. Only being allowed 7 players in our teams is really limiting us on picking players. He's scoring 1.2 goals per 90, but an XG of 0.22 per 90, so he's seriously outperforming his data. But that really doesn't matter when he's being so clinical. He's basically just scoring the chances he gets, which is exactly what you want from your attacker. I know I already mentioned this player as well last week, but I think they're worth a mention again, being at only 2.4% owned. Jodi Jones has already been showing us what he can do so far this season. He's already scored 23 points, with 12 in Game Week 3, when he got a goal and an assist, with 4 key passes against Grimsby. Notts County play away at Swindon this week. Swindon are another team yet to win this season, with 2 draws and a 4-0 home loss to Walsall in there too. So again, not really showing yet that they're better at home than they are away. So the away fixture from Notts County doesn't bother me too much, but it's still a thought in the back of my mind. With 2 goals and 2 assists so far this season, Jones is putting up 0.33 XG per 90 and 0.27 XA per 90. But that's no surprise after his 6 goals and 24 assists across last season. A player I'm definitely thinking about for this week, but I do prefer their fixture in Game Week 5 at home to Accrington. So yeah, maybe I just go for him then instead, as we've got so many options this week. Finally, I also like Eilezer Magenta at only 0.5% owned. He scored 18 points so far and really showed his potential in Game Week 2 when he scored 2 goals in Sunderland's 4-0 win over Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, he didn't get anything last week, but I'm not sure anyone expected him to against Burnley, even though Sunderland did end up getting the win 1-0. It's always nice to pick a player from a team that are playing really well in general, and that is definitely a thing here with Magenta and how Sunderland are playing. He does put up good data too, at 0.63 XG per 90, and 1.96 shots on target per 90. So that looks good to me, and this week Sunderland play away at Portsmouth, who have drawn all 3 league games so far this season. They drew 3-3 with Leeds on the open day, and then just 2-2 with Middlesbrough in Game Week 3. So although they're putting in good performances, they're conceding a fair few goals, which looks good from the attacking point of view of Sunderland. So a player I really like for Game Week 4 is just deciding who is the stronger pick. And then other but more highly owned players I really like this week are Alfie May, Josh Brownhill and Vitinho, but I won't go through them in depth as, like I said, I want to go through more differential players in this section. And I'll go through more highly owned players if they make it into my team selection video later this week. And then finally, just before we end the video, I've been answering a few other related questions for that game week, and so I just wanted to talk about the cheeky captain trick that people were using in game week 3. Now I've called it cheeky as I'm not sure it was intended to be used this way, but it is within the rules and players took advantage of that this week, so I'll just explain it here. Basically, because Notts County played on the Thursday night, people were able to vice-captain whoever they wanted from Notts County, so let's say Dan Crowley, who scored 18 points. If he didn't do well, then it didn't matter, as they could captain someone else later in the game week. But because he did do well, getting 18 points, players could then transfer in a goalkeeper that was definitely not going to play and captain that player so that the captainship would be transferred to Crowley as their vice-captain, making him the captain and doubling his points from 18 to 36. Obviously, you're then playing with 6 players rather than 7, as you've got no goalkeeper, but the chance of a keeper scoring 18 points is very slim. I hope that makes sense how I've explained it, but I'm sure that won't be the only time that trick is usable throughout the season. So it's important to look at the timings of fixtures in the game weeks. Just as an example for this week, if you don't understand, and I'm not saying this is a good idea by the way, so don't take this seriously, but Luton play at home to QPR on Friday night. So say you picked Chong as one of your players, you could vice-captain him. If you didn't get any points, it doesn't matter, you just leave it. But if you went and got 15 plus points, then because of the extended lockout system in the game, you could then transfer out your goalkeeper to one that isn't going to play, captain that goalkeeper, so that when he doesn't play, the captainship transfers to Chong, and instead of getting 15 points, you get 30 plus points. So it's a cheeky trick, but one that is part of the game, so anything we can take advantage of throughout the season. If you do have any other questions that I haven't answered in this video, please do drop them in the comments and I'll answer every single one of them. And there we are, that's everything you need to know before you make your Game Week 4 team selections. I'll go through my full team selection in a later video this week, where I'll also do a section on captaincy. So please subscribe to the channel, so you can keep an eye out for that video. If you did enjoy, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.